For viewers across Africa and the rest of the world, this is NC Continental Prime. I am Gbenga Aborowa. We begin the news at this hour in West Africa, where the class of 1999 ex-governors have paid a visit to Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu at the presidential villa in Abuja. Members of the class who have been visiting several members of the class serving in the current government is indicative of the readiness to participate in the current administration. The class of 1999 ex-governors comprises governors and deputies who had served between 1999 to 2007, including former President Goodluck Jonathan and the current Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume. In the meantime, Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has written to the House of Representatives seeking an amendment to the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act. The president says the amendment is to allow the government to source 500 billion naira for palliatives to cushion the effect of subsidy removal. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajudeen Abbas, read the president's letter during plenary on Wednesday. President Tinubu says the money will be sourced from the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act of 819.5 billion naira. Joining me tonight to discuss this is Paul Alaje, Chief Economist, SPM Professionals. He joins me from the United Arab Emirates for more on this. A warm welcome to you, Paul, and thank you for joining us on NC Continental Prime.
For having me. A beautiful evening to you, sir.
Now, Paul, what's the rationale behind President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's request to amend the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act in order to source for 500 billion naira for palliatives to cushion the effect of subsidy removal?
Well, what seems to be ubiquitous around Nigeria is the impact of inflation and hardship, especially as it's more potent among poor Nigerians and those that are of the middle class. You recall, or you notice, or you observe that those that are poor, about 40 to 60% of their income is now being consumed by transport, which means they are left with little or nothing to live on regarding their other very necessary, important expenses. And the middle class is also has not also been exempted. Many Nigerians are talking and complaining about the impact of subsidy. We still have the hope that in the long run, the policies of government regarding subsidy removal will have positive impact. I think the president and his team have heard this, and they feel it's important for them to start taking urgent decisions to support the people. Perhaps that is the reason why the 500 billion naira is being requested by the government. Also note that with this request, we also have another money that has been announced by the past administration, former President Buhari's administration, why the administration had mentioned that there is $800 million for the purpose of subsidy removal to ameliorate the impact and to reduce the impact on the lives of Nigerians. So this is another one we are seeing from the president. The question will be, how will it be dispensed?
Yes, that brings me to this. That brings me to this question, Paul. Where does the president propose to source this 500 billion naira from? And as the president talked about what the money will be used for, how would it be dispensed?
Well, if you see the meeting president had with his former colleague, the 1999 set of governors, he has hinted us that Nigeria should wait, some persons should wait for cash transfer, conditional cash transfer, and that, in his word, that it gets to those that should have it. I am afraid one of the things government is looking at is how cash will be transferred to poor Nigerians. But you see, we need to look at this very well. It's important to support our people, but for the impact to be significantly reduced, it will go beyond just giving cash to people. President Buhari transferred cash all through his administration. Poor number of Nigerians grew from over 60 million he left office at approximately 93 million people. Recall that President Buhari's administration had promised Nigerians in 2019 that was going to lift an average of 10 million people out of poverty. In the year he made the promise, at the year end, he was supposed to have lifted 5 million people. World Bank reports shows that President Buhari's administration actually had 5 million people. It's as though somebody was traveling from Abuja and is speeding to get to Lagos. Alas, he has faced Kaduna Road from Kaduna to Kano. Someday, the person may get to Sokoto. So this policy seems to have failed woefully under President Buhari.
Now, Paul, just before, yes,
that President Tinubu, we have something separate than just conditional cash transfer. And that made
yes, and that brings me to this question. Before I let you go, you've emphasized on the fact that you can't just give fish to the people. You need to teach them how to fish, and we saw what happened with the previous administration with the issue of conditional cash transfers. What other additional methods or policies would you suggest for palliative measures to cushion the effects of the subsidy removal beyond the conditional cash transfers? What else could be done?
Well, I think government should embark speedily on capital projects. Nigeria will save approximately 7 trillion naira every year from subsidy removal. That money should not find the way back to our budget, even if it will. We should have a separate managers of the monies that we invest these funds directly on the economy. And this should come first in infrastructure. In our opinion, we feel this money should go into road infrastructure that we cut across the entire federation. And apart from road, we should also provide more counterpart funds for rail lines so that we can reduce movement of goods and services within Nigeria. Thirdly, government must ensure there is adequate security. And I will tell you why I'm saying this. I'm adding this to it because the real concern we have in Nigeria is inflation. If your salary was 250,000 naira 1st of January 2021, by December 2023, that same salary will only buy something worth 100,000 naira that you could buy in 2021. And I will tell you why. The National Bureau of Statistics says the average inflationary figure, inflation is growing at 20%. 20%, if you take it even on flat rates, what we have is about 100,000 naira. And I want to strongly believe that the incumbent administration, I beg your pardon, we also look at how do we support people in terms of infrastructure so that we can activate, we can re-engineer the private sector that, of course, eventually we employ people, the private sector where people want to participate in business. All of us cannot directly work for government, but for those who might choose to work in private sector, the environment will be good for them, to be secure, farmers will be safe to go back to farm so that the cost of food items will reduce significantly as a result of supply, and the price of goods and logistics will also be solved. These are other tools that could be used, but more importantly, the monetary of the central bank, we need to wake up and do more in agreeing or aligning with the fiscal counterpart as well as state counterpart to combat what inflation is saying to you, so that Nigeria, of course, Nigerians in general, will start having a level of relief as regards their cost of living and, more importantly, their living standards.
Thank you very much for your insights and contribution, Paul Alaje, the Chief Economist at SPM Professionals, joining us live from the
United Arab
Emirates. We appreciate it.
For having me.